in beautiful Michigan. Tonight we have two very special authors with us, both thriller writers like myself, so I'm super geeked to have them on. Tonight we have Jay Sigler and Justin M. Woodward. Yeah, yeah. And then, of course, the queen of sin herself, Katie Salidas. How's it going, Katie?
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, lovely hair tonight, by the way. I'm glad that you've started this new thing where you brush your hair, and you know, it's good.
Every so often, you know, once a while.
All right. So, Justin, before you came on the show, you had a very harrowing experience. Tell us what happened to you just before you came on.
Man, I was like walking over here to grab my headphones out of my car, and I heard like a snap and a thud, and I looked on the ground, and there was a snake like 6 feet long, just like laying in the ground, or laying in the yard. And I was like, should we do something about this? So yeah, that was I've lived here a long time, and that's the first time I've seen a snake, so it was kind of weird.
Is your heart still thumping kind of fast now?
Nah. It just brought it to a normal level.
So we're not like an Indiana Jones thing where, you know, snakes are your weakness.
No. It's just I mean, I wasn't that worried because it was just laying there, and then I think it was stunned or something. It was weird, but it was clearly not a rattlesnake or anything like that. So when you live in South Alabama, you see a snake, you don't get that scared. What's that?
Did you let it go or what?
No, it was not my decision. I'm at my in-laws right now, so he decided to get rid of it. I was on the fence. I don't know. Because we weren't quite sure what it was. So, but yeah, I didn't have that decision.
All right.
Speaking of Indiana Jones, Katie, I was actually climbing into my hammock, which is, you can't see it, it's out of frame. But anyhow, I was climbing into my hammock earlier, and it was kind of scary because it's like one floor up, and so I was humming the Indiana Jones theme song as I was doing it, but I didn't die, so it was good.
I totally believe that.
Giant stone ball did come rolling after me at one point, so
I could actually see you doing that. You would do your own action music as you were doing stunts.
That would be fantastic, wouldn't it? All right, so I suppose we should talk to our guest tonight. So, Justin, tell us what you write.
Well, it's a good question. There's a simple answer, but I just want to say that like I got branded really early as a horror writer, and that's okay. But that's not really what I was ever going for. It's just I have 3 novels. The variant is like a sci-fi, I don't know, fantasy thriller, I guess. With I mean, it's grounded in reality, but there's some crazy things that happen. And then Candy is like a straight up thriller, drama, comedy. And Tamer Animals, the one that I just released with Bloodshot Books, of course, is horror because that's all Bloodshot Books publishes. And so I would say dark fiction. I don't want to continue to be a horror writer. I might pop one out here and there, but I never wanted to be like Stephen King. I just wanted, Chuck Palahniuk was actually my biggest influence to get started. And I know that's kind of laughable to some people, but it's what got me into it. And so I would say dark fiction is what I write.
Why would you say that that's laughable to some people?
Chuck Palahniuk?
Yeah.
Because I think his reputation is not what it used to be. And I think that he's known for being like the dude's author. Like, they say like, a lot of people started reading because of him, because he wrote like dude fiction. And I was never into it for like the macho-ness behind Fight Club, because if you really know him, I mean, Palahniuk was a gay man, so he that's not even what that book is about. But he got branded as being like kind of like the douchebag's author, and I just like the existential like nihilism, and he's pessimistic like me, and so that's what Candy was all about. It was just like my love letter to his style and him. And I was like, hey, this is kind of like my Palahniuk version book. So anyway,
okay.
So yeah, that's when I say laughable. I don't think it's laughable, but I think that Palahniuk's reputation has gone down a lot since his 5th book or whatever.
Okay. Well, and I was looking on your website earlier, and this is why I asked you what you write, because reading on Facebook, horror writer, and they didn't really look like horror novels between the three of them. Tamer Animals, yes, which by the way has a fantastic cover. I absolutely love it.
Yeah,
very, very eye-catching. But yeah, it seems like you're much more than just horror, which I think is cool.
Yeah. You know, not to talk about myself too long, but the next one I'm writing, for example, is about a detective with dissociative identity disorder. So, and it's actually going to be part love story. So it's kind of like it's going to be super dark and like mind blowing, but it's not going to be horror. I mean, it's not going to be gory. I'm not going for scares. I just want to write a good story. So.
Well, I think that's what we all want to do is to make a good story. So
Yeah.
What about you, Jay? What do you write? Well, I already know what you write. You wrote Train Thoughts, right?
Yes, sir. I did.
Tell us about this novel, because there's kind of a cool story behind it, it sounds like.
Well, yeah. So years and years and years ago, I used to commute on a train 2 hours each way into Chicago and back. I've read my whole life, so I just figured, hey, why not start writing a story? Was never going to do anything with it. So it actually turned out to be, I don't know, a readable story that I finally decided to publish years later. I was never really going for anything genre. Like, I didn't have in my mind, hey, this is going to be a horror novel or this is going to be a thriller. It was just kind of the story I wanted to tell. And so when I first released it, Rookie Mistake, I was just kind of like, hey, here's Train Thoughts. And then, everyone's reading it, and I would get the feedback that, like, man, that is some sick, twisted shit. Like, what the hell? Why would you trick me into reading this? So I realized that, I should probably start branding it as horror or thriller type genres there. But it was never, same as Justin. I wouldn't say that I'm a thriller writer or a horror writer. Like, I just want to tell the stories that come to me. And if it's got to fit to a genre in order to put it out on Amazon or out into the world, then so be it.
Well, and that's a tough thing too, is that because people are always asking me what I write, and I really kind of have this broken path when it comes to writing and what I've written, but they want to hear exactly what category you write in, because they want to know if it's palatable to them. So if you can't say I'm a thriller writer or I'm fantasy or it's this versus this or this and this, then they're not really interested. So while putting ourselves in a box can be a pain in the ass, it's really what readers want, so that they know if they're gonna pick up our fiction or not. Like, I know that I would pick up something like Train Thoughts because I like horror and I like gruesome, grisly stuff. But my wife, if I tricked her into reading that, telling her it was a thriller, she'd be like, "What the hell is wrong with you? Why would you do that to me?"
Yeah. So I did a book signing event earlier today at Half Price Books in Orland Park, and this older woman came up to me and she was looking at the book and she's like, "Oh, is this all about like training your thoughts and living a better life?" And she was just so nice and sweet. And I was like, how important is it to sell a book? Because I could have, but then I was like, no, not unless you like grisly, brutal murders and things of that nature. And she looked at me surprised and walked off. So
slowly back.
Imagine what would have happened if you had sold it to that one. You straight to hell, just straight to hell.
Man. Go in there anyway.
Oh, but that thought runs through your head though when you're doing events. You're like, how important is it really to sell a book? Because I could use a win today.
Yeah. And I think, again, another rookie mistake is with a book titled Train Thoughts, it does kind of suggest an introspective journey of oneself, which
that's
to
exactly
me,
what I thought it was.
Yeah.
It's just like
it's like it's not that.
Who was it that he left me a joke review and he said, "I bought this book to tame my goat and there's no tips in here whatsoever."
Oh yeah,
it was a joke review. So yeah, you can say Tamer Animals is a little misleading too, I guess, especially once you find out what that means in the book.
Yeah.
Well, that's where cover art comes in too, because you can have a semi-misleading title, but the cover art should say what it is just on site.
Yeah.
Well, I thought so. I thought a train with a skull and explosions and like evil dripping tar would maybe, hint, you know. But
I thought it was horror when I saw it. I don't know. I thought it looked menacing. I don't.
Well, to be honest with you, Jay, looking at your cover, I mean, just when you first glance at it, it looks like what they're doing with lit fiction now, with more literary fiction, with that type of color scheme and that type of design. So it's kind of, I can see how it might be confusing at first, but then when you look at it and you see this cool big old skull, then I think it should be obvious at that point. But
Maybe she didn't have her glasses on, you know.
yeah, that's right.
Isn't there a byline or whatever at the bottom that says, or is that just your banner? I know it says psychological or something.
yeah, I added that later to Amazon. You know, one of the things I've learned is, you know, you can add that tagline. So I did say it's a suspenseful horror thriller.
Right.
So that way people clicking to it would at least, you know, be tipped off that way. But, you know, like I always say, if you don't know what you're getting into, then that's on you.
Yeah. Well, can I say something real quick about horror as a genre? One of the things that can hurt authors and help some authors is that horror can be anything from Paul Tremblay to the most extreme brutal rape violence. So, and I'm not knocking either, especially Paul Tremblay. I'm just using, like, I think Paul Tremblay is literary with a touch of darkness, and he's really good at doing that style, but he's branded as horror. And I think it pisses a lot of people off because I've seen some review, and it's not his fault, because I do think he's horror. A Head Full of Ghosts was a fantastic horror book. But his brand of horror is more literary, but it's still horror, just the same as you know, the slashers. So that some people don't know what they want, you know.
I think all genres have their spectrums though too, because if I were to say fantasy to somebody, which is what I write in, some people think, you know, like Lord of the Rings, they think epic fantasy or George R.R. Martin. But then again, there's also urban fantasy. So you've got like, you know, City of Glass, City of Bones, all that stuff. And it goes on either side too.
Yeah, well, and especially within horror. I mean, when you mentioned you didn't set out to be the next Stephen King, you know, writing horror novels, and you know, he's called the master of horror, whatever. He's got, you know, 50 plus books, but really they're not all horror. You know, some of them have scary shit in it. Some of them are bloody. Some of them are gruesome. But
his best ones are.
But that's where he is. That's where he's been put, and that's where he'll always be. You know, when you say horror, I think he's probably one of the first names that most of the general public will think of.
Well, so let me run this idea by you, because when I think about that, like I think about the way that I've been growing and the type of fans that I have. I just don't want I don't want people who love tamer animals to read something lighter and more, you know, introspective and just kind of like something I move on to. And it's like, you know, Black Album was pretty good, but Reload sucked, you know, and, but yeah, it's just part of it.
That's a true statement, though.
Yeah, it's just part of it.
My publisher, when I signed on with them, had some very uncomfortable words for me that I really didn't want to hear, but I've repeated them several times on the show, and they've told me that by writing in several different genres, I've fractured my reader base. And that's because I had written several books that I considered horror or thrillers, and then 2 more that were more dystopian, and then even some fantasy stuff. And they really had a lot of stern words for me about not doing that, because people develop expectations.
Right.
You know, I read Tamer Animals and I'm thinking the variant is going to be another slasher book, and it's not, and I might be disappointed. However, because even though that's true, and even though I think there's a lot of truth to that, we still got to write what's in our heart. We still got to write what we want, because that's why we're here. You know, I don't think anybody first picks up their pad of paper or their computer saying, okay, I'm going to write because I'm doing this to make money, and I need to write 10 of these same genre books. We're writing because we love to write, and that's got to be it.
Well, that's how you start. You write the book that you would want to read. And I think you go into that with whatever you desire to see. It doesn't have to be in any specific genre. But then once you go towards publishing it, now you're creating the label.
Right.
And now, like Jason just said, you almost have to live up to your expectations. So now if you've started out in fantasy you have to keep writing fantasy because that's what your readers want, unless you change names and start over again as a pen name.
Right.
But
that can
there's
get
a
a little
lot of
crazy too.
overlapping genres too, though.
Yeah.
And I think if you're writing something that spans those genres, when you say Stephen King, I think thriller and horror. I don't just think one or the other. I think both together.
Yeah.
And I think readers are savvy enough to pick that up too.
Yeah.
Hope so.
Yeah.
I haven't had any bad experiences with it, and all three of my books are, you know, super different. So, I just moving forward, because it's like I went up an escalator. Like the variant was touching, and it was, a lot of people said it gave them nightmares, but I don't know. Anyway, it had these otherworldly things in it, and Candy was just like fun and murderous, and then Tamer Animals was like, oh my god. It's like, what if I start going down that hill again? We'll see.
So Katie, what are you working on right now? Last time we talked, you were still working on your third and your urban fantasy series. Is that still what you're doing?
Oh yeah, I'll be working on that for a while.
A while? You already released the first two. You got to get this out.
At Christmas time, I have time.
What happened to releasing them a month at a time?
Yeah, no, I wasn't going to keep up with that pace. At 80,000 words a pop, I'm not doing that, because to give, we've had this argument before. There are people who can put books out really fast, and more power to them that they can do that. For me, when I write, it's multiple layers of drafts and then beta readers, and then the editor gets it. I can't just quick release and feel comfortable with that. So it's got to get through its draft phase. It's got to get through its beta reader phase. It's got to get through its editing phase before I'm ready to release it. I just happen to take the time to have books 1 and 2 ready. So yeah, it'll be a while.
So smart. So smart.
Well, I had a question for Justin on that, because I think all three of your books, you released them right to 2017, right? Like, so it's only been a year. Are you going for rapid release, or are you like me where it's 8 years?
The variant was August 2016.
2016. Okay.
And then I finished Tamer Animals in like August 2017 and submitted it, and I heard back within like, I don't know, it was a month or two, and he says, "Yeah, I want to publish this," and I was like, "Okay," and so he says, "But it's going to be almost a year before it comes out," and I was like, "Man," because at that point I could feel like my fan base growing, and I wanted to give people something, so I said, "Who would be up for a?" Because I'm notoriously bad for, if I don't have like a strict schedule with writing, that I won't even do it for like a couple weeks here and there, because I just get so busy, and anyway, I said, I need a kick in the ass. If I release a chapter every week on Wattpad, would that be something that people would be into? And I figured, whatever. I didn't have anything in mind. I just sat down and said, okay, it's going to be about a girl named Candy, and I'm going to make it stupid crazy, and it's going to be a Pollinic tribute, whatever. And anyway, long story short, I released every week for 6 months. The book was done. I edited it and got the audiobook girl going, and so I was faced with a choice, because Tamer Animals was going to come out in June. It got pushed back to June. It was supposed to be way later in the year. And I was like, man, I told people Candy would be available. Nobody's going to buy it though. And so I published Candy a month to the day almost before Tamer Animals, so that I could kind of link the success of it, if it had any. And it backfired in a good way, because everybody who read the story for free for 6 months, they wanted to own it, you know? And then, so Candy sold a lot, like more than I thought it would. And then Tamer Animals, I thought it was a good little thing, but that's to answer your question. It probably would have been more like a year apart if I had, and it wasn't a plan. It's just that my books are shorter and I need to work on that.
What is your typical word count look like?
About 50K.
Okay.
So
okay.
You're looking, an afternoon, 4 or 5 hours reading, and you're done. And it's just, it's something that I struggle with, and everybody knows it. I told people, like, because you're anxious to get things out there, but then at the same time, like, I don't put a whole lot of fluff in my books. Yeah. And that's not, I wish I could. I strive to do that. And I need to work on that. But typically, some of my best reviews actually say, I love how just direct it is. I mean, that's what Josh Mallerman was giving me that compliment. He said, dude, you're just like, bam, bam, you know, with so few words. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I guess that's my thing right now. So,
well, and I write like that too, man. I get 40, 50,000 words and I'm like, oh, dude, the story has already been told. What the hell am I going to do?
Yeah. Let's wrap this up and not waste any time. Let's go to the next one. And, you know, I mean, I have had a few people, maybe 5 people total in the couple years I've been, you know, public with this, and who have said, I wish it was longer, but most people were like, man, when's the next one? You know, and that's why I sell it cheap. Candy's $8 on Amazon for a paperback or whatever. So, you know, that's the idea. I didn't give you a long book, so you don't have to give me a lot of money, you know?
Do you ever get reviews where they say that you haven't given enough depth to your character because it's very, what's the word I'm looking for?
Short?
No, not short. It's more to the point, and I totally get that style, and that works for certain genres really well, because the shorter, choppier, quicker sentences create a cadence that amps you up, just like that increased heartbeat. So that works, and a lot of times with thrillers and horrors, because you want people reading quickly and tearing through to the next page. But then again, you get those readers out there who are like, well, you didn't spend enough time on giving your characters depth and letting us know what their inner thoughts are and all of that. Do you ever hear that?
The difference between Stephen King and Richard Lehman. I love both of them, but sometimes I just want to read. It's like Joe Hill said, his favorite sentence that he's read in a horror book is "flies hummed," you know, and just because of how simple it is. It's 2 words. It gets the point across. If your book is, I would put it like this. Okay. Everybody here has read Stephen King. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you get into a book of his and like, even though he's rambling, it's kind of comfortable. Like, oh yeah, this is nice. Because, you know, I know these people. That's what he's known for, to me. But with me, I don't feel like I cut these people short. In fact, I think I spend more time developing my characters than I do with the action. So, and maybe that's what people like. Tamer Animals, it's like 50% through the book on your Kindle or whatever. I remember when I was doing edits before anything bad happens, really. But the first half is still interesting because you find out what makes us all more animalistic than we think we are. You know, everybody's got every kid has a chapter about what's going on in their lives, and so it's how you look at it. I mean, you get what I'm saying? I haven't had that question is what I'm saying. I haven't, because I don't think that that's the case for me. I have had people say you ramped up the energy right until where it was getting nuts, and then you just like cut it off. And I'm like, well, that's what I was going for. It's shock value. I mean, and you were like, what the hell? And you know you were. So why do we have to talk about the stabbing scene for 50 minutes, you know? I think I'm the opposite. I build up a long thing and then I have like a bunch of shit happen at the end. And so, yeah.
Well, and I think that's a pretty standard format for most thrillers and horror novels. And there's nothing wrong with brevity. You know, you mentioned Stephen King, and, you know, I love King. He was one of my first authors that I really fell in love with reading, but at times, especially his later novels, I'm just like, okay, dude, this is a hell of a lot of description here, man.
It's audiobooks, man. You got to listen to the audio.
I run into the same thing because I'm reading the George R.R. Martin books, and while I absolutely love them as a political high fantasy story, every chapter is a laborious read, and it takes time. I finish a chapter, I'm like, all right, I got to sit down and I got to relax now because there was a lot of material to go through.
Well, can I just say one short thing about the length of the book, and I'll stop talking about it. But you also have to everybody assumes that everybody wants a long book, but I mean, I only know one person inside and out, and that's me. And when I go to especially with audiobooks, because I do a lot of traveling for work, so I'll look at the length and if it's like, 15 or 25 hours, I'm like, oh man, maybe another day. You know, I'll pick the one that's 6 hours because I don't want this story to go on for 3 weeks. That's just me. I mean, I love short books. Widow's Point by Richard Chismar and Billy Chismar was short and to the point, and it was super effective. And I love that they didn't try to flesh that little story into a novel.
I mean, I'm the same way when I pick up a book to read. Sometimes it's like I just want that 200 to 300 page book to get through. Much as I love the stands and the its, like I really have to mentally prepare to read one of those. And this is going to be your life for like a month, so get ready. Versus just I'm going to pick up a book like this, read it pretty quick.
Appreciate that. I didn't bring any books to show, to selfishly plug on the show.
And there is an argument to be made for how we take our entertainment. Some of us, we like watching TV versus movies. Some people like those quick reads, those like Reader's Digest short stories versus the really long reads. So I guess it really depends on the reader who's taking the story for what they see.
And I like to watch movies, but it's not because movies are longer. It's because when I go to binge watch a show, which my wife loves to do, you've got to watch like 2 seasons of the show or 3 seasons or whatever the hell's on Hulu. And then that's like 20, 30 hours worth of crap I've got to sift through. Whereas I can just sit through Iron Man in 2 hours and be happy and go to bed. So
yeah, I'm the complete opposite. I prefer like those super long series that I can just invest in forever, but I'll take them in small chunks. I may binge watch 1 or 2 episodes at a time, but I know I've got a month of being able to just immerse myself in a world without running out of shows.
Katie, you've really kind of taken over the show again tonight. We've got to give it back over to our guest. Okay, come on now.
Okay, I'm shutting up now. Sorry. Here, I'm hitting the mute button.
I thought I was talking too much. Sorry.
If anyone out there wants to make Train Thoughts into either a series or a movie, or that is.
But what would you prefer? Would you prefer the movie or the series?
I think I would prefer the movie for that, but I do have a quick story. Before I first published it, I was talking to some company that actually wanted to make it into a graphic novel, which I thought was like, I would have never have thought about it that way, but like I could totally see this being a graphic novel. Like I think it's fascinating. So
yeah.
All right. So any artists or film directors out there?
If you're out there, contact me and then contact Jay afterwards, after you talk to me about my books.
Right.
So Jay, tell us more about Train Thoughts. So you're sitting on the train as you're commuting and you're thinking about murdering all these people around you, and that's how the book started?
Yeah, basically, no. So I'm sitting on a train, and I think we've all gone through this, right? Like if you do something every day, you just start to notice things that happen every day. So if you're on a train commuting, you see the same people over and over, and you start to think of them as like just part of your normal routine. So that happens a lot in a 2-hour commute each way, 5-6 days a week. And so I just started thinking, well, what are the stories behind these people? Like not even ever having met them, like that guy could be, I don't know, a cobbler, or that guy can be a chef, or that guy can be a serial killer. And like, what happens if like something starts happening to all these people on the train that are like your normal daily commute, but then someone, an observer, just sees them, it starts piecing it all together. And that's really what spawned off the story. And I just started writing it from there. And it starts to take a psychological turn in terms of like what the guy's suffering through mentally. So the main character, we enter the story where he just lost his wife. So he's struggling through loneliness and depression, and he starts dealing with it through his observations of these other commuters.
And just to clarify, you just said cobbler?
Yeah.
Does anyone know what the hell a cobbler is?
Isn't that like the shoe thing? A shoe cobbler?
Yeah, shoemaker.
I tried to throw in a smart word, and then I got hard about it. And yes, my smart word was cobbler.
Well, that's very good. That's a very good smart word.
Try.
I have something serious I want to talk to you guys about now that we actually have 2 males on the show with us. So this was a little while ago now, but I've never been able to talk to somebody about it. And are you drinking champagne right now?
No.
What are you drinking? Oh, that's my favorite. Love it. Okay, so I used to work with this guy, and I don't know how we got on this subject, so no judgment there. Okay, so he tells me one day about how after he poops, how he wipes his butt. and again, we're not going into why we were talking about this. But sorry, Katie.
No judgment here, man.
So, and he tells me that after he poops, he reaches down from the front to wipe his butt. And this seems so completely bizarre to me and foreign. And I had no idea that anyone else in the world would actually do this. So I'm curious, from two other men, do you guys go from the front or the back if you need to wipe?
I bypass the whole process myself personally.
You just use your underwear, right?
You just tell me to shut up so he could talk about pooping.
I just pull up my underwear real tight.
Yeah, I just go jump in the pool and wave my ass around in a circle.
I'm never letting you have control of the show again.
I don't know, man.
This has been plaguing me for years now.
So
I don't know why you wouldn't go from the back.
I think you picked the best time to ask somebody when they're live with their fan base watching.
Yeah.
Justin M. Woodward wipes his ass from the front.
Yeah. Oh, Justin.
Yeah.
Have you always been a front wiper?
I suppose. You
Wow.
you gotta get in there, you know? I don't know.
Everybody is getting bidets for Christmas.
Yes, please, God, send him a bidet.
Yeah.
So, Katie, you have a male child. Now, when you taught him to wipe, did you teach him from the front or the back?
The back. You always go from the back.
Okay, good. Oh, thank God. Thank God.
Although getting him to stop peeing out in the backyard's been a problem.
You've got a wall. It's okay.
Boys, man, what is that? From the moment we took him camping and he realized he could pee in nature, that's the only place he wants to pee.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, man.
Hey, Katie, you better take the reins before I think of something else to talk about.
I'm still laughing that you told me to shut up so you could talk about pooping. Never living that one down.
There's no shame in my game.
So Justin, what got you into writing, man?
I think I've always wanted to. I mean, I know that's cliche, but as a kid, like as a young kid, I liked horror. I like Goosebumps and things like that. And I wanted my babysitter to write a horror novel with me. And we kept having, I'll never forget it. I mean, I was little, dude. I was like 6 or 7. And I was like, listen, it has to start with something horrific. And she was like, no, because she was like, it was a dark and stormy night. And like, she was like typing it, pretending to. And I was like arguing with her. No. You have to start with something shocking and then let it mellow off. And she was like, nobody does that. And so I got to be in my later 20s and I was like, I'll do that. So I'm not the first one though. But anyway, no, my buddy, I have a buddy named Jim Goffio, and he wrote a novel called House of the Holy. And I really liked it. And I was just like, no offense to him, but I didn't even know he was a writer. So I was like, if he could do that, I could do that. So I started asking him questions. And then it was probably a year later when the variant came out, I just knocked it out. And first thing I ever wrote fully, fiction wise, and because I wrote papers and stuff, I was pretty good at writing in high school. And I guess one day the bug just bit me, and I was like, man, I'm gonna do this. And it's kind of like, and I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm just saying, like, you get told you're talented by so many people, and you start thinking like, well, I must have something, because I can't play any sports, and I know kids that are great from the get-go. So I just sat down and it just flowed, and I was like, man, this is really happening. And it just went from there. So I don't think I'm fantastic, but I try to grow with each book and make each book better than the last.
Oh, you're fantastic.
That's my goal. Well, thanks, man. I just try to set out to make each thing better than what I did before. And I figure if I did that, then I'll get somewhere one day,
Let me ask you this. Everybody who meets a writer, and I'm sure you guys have gotten this question before, they always say, oh, I want to write a book. How do I do it? What is your process? Do you let it all out, do your first draft, and then start doing revisions? Do you work with somebody and bounce around ideas? Do you do bits and pieces? Do you write linearly? I can talk. Or do you outline? I mean, everybody's got a process.
I never outline, and I'm not knocking people who do. I can't. And so let me back up. I can to an extent to where I'll have notes in my phone and I'll say it's going to kind of go like this because that's the idea I had. It's not that I sat down and tried to make it that way. It's just like when I get ideas for books, it's because I thought of the ending and the beginning and the middle all kind of together. You know what I mean? It's not like I don't go, there's going to be, except for Candy. Candy was completely, had no clue. That was the only one. But with the variant Tamer Animals, I wrote them knowing the kind of gist. And then after that, I set up the OneDrive files and I sit down in the little snatches of time that I have, which are very rare. I've got, when I started the variant, my oldest was 2, and now I have a 4-year-old and almost 1-year-old, and I work about 40 to 50 hours a week, usually 45 or so, and try to take care of the kids, try to write. I mean, try to read myself when I can, and writing. It can be really bad. Sometimes I just have to like put on headphones and just lock myself away and just say, look, I'm feeling it right now. I'm going to have to do this right now. So I'm pretty unconventional. I put this in the ending section from the author for the variant, but when I was writing the variant, I didn't put the company I worked for at the time, but I was working for Armored. I was an armored guard for Loomis, and I was also an armored guard for Brinks for 3 years. And when I wrote the variant, I wrote probably half of it in the back of an armored truck, riding from one city to another. And I would just pull out the Word app and just type away like I was texting somebody back there. And I would get home and I would send it to my computer and I would pick up where I left off. And a lot of times when I sit down to write, I have to read like the last 5 pages because sometimes I don't remember anything about it. So I'm pretty reckless when it comes to writing myself. I just kind of just go.
No, that's cool. Everybody's got their own way to do it. So, all right, let's turn it over to you then. How do you do it, Jay?
I usually let things just bake in my head. So I guess you can say I outline it, but I never put it down on any paper. It's kind of just in my head. And at least with Train Thoughts, which was, I didn't know how to write. I didn't even realize outlines and all these tools that were out there to help. I kind of just drank a lot and wrote some words and then woke up the next day, read the last 5 pages like Justin said, and just figured out what was going on. But I had a general idea since the story had been one that I'd been thinking about for years and years, where I knew the beginning, I knew the ending, I knew kind of the middle parts. And it was really just, I surprised myself to see what I would write and come up with, like how to get to those different milestones. Since then, like the stuff I'm working on now, I'm a little bit more disciplined. Like I do write down notes, and I'm more visual. So I actually draw out like story maps instead of just outlines of words, using pictures. So I've gotten a little bit better that way. But yeah, it's usually just marinating in my head while I'm at work or at home or doing other stuff.
So what are you working on right now? Do you have a new novel you're crafting?
I am. It's kind of related to Train Thoughts, so it's more, I've been describing as more of like an Easter egg if you've read it. So there's some tie-ins there. I know some authors have done that already. Look at Justin, but
Yeah.
you won't have to need to read Train Thoughts to understand this one. And again, when I sit down, I don't think I'm going to write a novel or I'm going to write a short story. Kind of just the story. I think it's going to be less than a novel, so novella. It's going to be fairly short, and I'm hoping to get that out soon. But other than that, I've been marinating short story ideas, and I do have an idea for a longer term novel. So it's kind of all open right now.
Okay. And then we have a question from Rachel Drenning. She said, are any of your stories based on things you have dreamed? And I know that for myself, Rachel, none of my stories are based on my dreams, but some of mine have a lot to do with my wife's dreams, because she'll wake up in the morning and she'll be like, oh, you won't believe this dream I had. And I don't know if she's secretly a psychopath or just has these crazy, bizarre ass dreams, but she dreams up some pretty wicked stuff. And so she'll tell me, and I'm like, oh man, that'll be a great little little scene in a book. And sometimes I'll actually build a whole story just around that one scene. But what about you guys? Do you ever write about what you dream?
Well, so in Train Thoughts, like a large part of it is the main character has these like horrible, terrible, gory filled dreams.
Like you had when you were writing The Train.
Yeah, I'm going to say that there is some truth on how I got there. So some of those are actual dreams that I've had. And I did a lot of research, into learning about dreams and what they mean, and it fit in well with the story. So, yes, dreams are a big part of Train Thoughts, at least.
Okay. What about you, Justin?
No, I mean, I hate to be boring, but you would think that. I mean, I don't know.
It's okay to say no, man. Go good.
Ideas in the shower.
You don't ever dream that you're a 13-year-old girl that goes around killing people?
Uh-oh.
Okay, what did you say?
I said you don't ever dream that you're a 13-year-old girl going around killing people?
No, I don't have that dream.
All you got is a slow blink.
Yeah, because I keep losing connection. I'm trying to figure out why. So he's like, "You never had a dream?" Should be good again.
Well, I have a question for all three of you, actually. Oh, Rachel says, Justin, you're boring. That's no. Rachel, be nice. He's not boring. He had a long day. There you go. He just needs another beer. So for all three of you guys, and this is something I find doing in my writing, do you ever put attributes from your friends or family or even yourself into your characters to make them a little bit more relatable to you while you're writing them, or are they just completely out of nowhere?
I do. I mean, there's parts of there's parts of myself, there's parts of friends, people I know, acquaintances that I use to craft and create some of the characters that I have, but nothing. I will say that no single character is like a one-to-one, like this character is this person in my life. So it's really just characteristics and attributes that kind of just get the creative juices flowing as a starting point.
Okay. Well, what about you, Justin?
Yeah, I would say a lot. I'm actually, that's probably one of my weaker points is that take it for what it is, but most of my characters are, different facets of me, and or my friends or whatever, like Tamer Animals. Yeah, those kids that went camping, those were me and my friends. Not like he said, not person for person, but and in the variant, it was very much about my life and things like that. So a lot of, in fact, when I inscribe copies of the variant for people who order them from me, I always say there's a lot of me in here, because it's a lot of me. Candy, not so much. That was just, I was on the outside of that one for sure.
Oh, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think it can be I think it can be really helpful as an author, because especially when I'm writing characters, and if I have a big cast, I can have trouble seeing them all in my head sometimes. And so if I know that this person has these attributes from my friend John or whoever it is, then in my head, I'm kind of seeing them as this action is taking place, and it helps me better write the scene. But I was just wondering if anyone else did that. What about you, Katie?
Yeah, I take attributes from people that I know, and I use them in characters. Jason, you should know, you've read some of my stuff, and you've seen me and my husband with our little play arguing. Mm-hmm. If you've seen us interact, and you've seen how some of my characters snipe at each other.
That's play arguing? Well, when the butcher knives come out, I don't consider it play anymore.
Jason came to visit us one time, and me and my husband, we play fight a lot, and we snip at each other, and it really means nothing. It's just kind of like our love language is picking at each other. And sometimes to the outside person who hasn't really known us for very long, it can sound mean sometimes, but it's really just like us trying to one up each other. And a lot of times my characters, especially if I'm using arguments, I look back at like arguments I've had with my husband. I'm like, yes, I'm using this.
Yes, your arguments are, your dialogue, I feel, is especially strong in your books. In all of your books, actually, the ones that I've read anyway. I think that your dialogue is super strong. It's really natural, so I can definitely see that.
The thing is, too, when I write, a lot of people are very scene heavy. A lot of people are very, what's going on? How do the characters look? My first draft is dialogue only. It's almost like a screenplay. I hear the characters speak, and then I form their world around them.
Well, that's not a bad way to do it, because really, when you're reading, that's the one part you're not going to skip over is all the dialogue.
And that is how I read. I tend to, especially in like the bigger books, I jump over the big heavy paragraphs and I go to what they're saying, and I can visualize better when I see them interacting or hear them interacting rather than being told what they're doing.
Yep. You don't want to get too weighed down with the other stuff. Now, we were talking about genres a little bit earlier, Katie, and you have written in a few different genres. Can you weigh in on the whole, because then you made a statement that, if you start writing one thing, you got to keep doing it, but you haven't done that at all. So what has your experience really been?
It is all technically the same genre, because I write under the umbrella of fantasy. So like I was saying before, I mean, if you're a thriller writer, and
right under the umbrella of author.
I will say, though, that one of my favorite series, the dystopian one, it's the outlier compared to all the rest that I've written. And it does kind of get treated like the outlier. It doesn't have the same read through as other books I've written. So if you've read the werewolf series or the vampire series, most people don't jump right over to the dystopian series because it doesn't have that direct link.
So you've written romance, you've written urban fantasy, dystopian, and young adults, kind of young adult paranormal, would you say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then what was the wolves one?
Well, there's two flavors. There's the young adult wolves, and then there's the more paranormal romance, more mature wolves. But again, those two series link. They have connecting characters.
Out of all of those, what sells the best, though?
Right now, actually, the new series is selling the best. The Agents of Asset, which is more urban fantasy. But historically, it's been the wolves that sell the best, the young adult and the adult together, because the linking characters, it's like that Marvel Cinematic Universe. If you like Doctor Strange and you want to see how Doctor Strange goes into the Avengers, you end up watching everything.
Okay. What about you, Justin? Between your three books, is there one that seems to stand out as far as sales go, or are they all kind of even?
Hold on a second. What was one that seems to stand out as far as what? I lost
as far as sales go. Yeah, I love that cover, Jay.
Oh.
Fantastic. Yeah, what sells the best for you? Which one of yours?
Hold on 1 second. Okay, I got you back here. I would say I don't know, because Tamer Animals was not published by me. So I think Tamer Animals by far actually is probably the biggest seller, if you include audiobooks. I've got all three of my books on audio. Candy sold way more than I expected, and then Tamer Animals really picked up after the initial launch, I guess, when it started getting shared around and people saw the cover everywhere. And it's kind of my book, right? It's like if people talk about me, they talk about Tamer Animals. So
yeah, it's a badass cover, man. It's one that's very memorable. So
yeah, I found the guy. It's Francois Valancourt. I'm probably butchering the way that you pronounce it, but he's done work for Stephen King, and Joe Hill wants to use him, and he's fantastic. Richard Chizmar uses him a lot for Cemetery Dance now, including movie posters for like Widow's Point and things like that. So we met through the Joe Hill fan club, It's a group that I started for Joe Hill, and he started posting in there. So I was like, I like his stuff. So I messaged him, and we worked out a deal, and he he provided the cover, and I thought that it just was. I mean, it couldn't have been better. You know, and I was just like, wow, this is why I went for this guy. I mean, there's plenty of great people out there, but I mean, I think to me, it's his best cover. And of course I'm going to say that, but it's just fantastic. I mean, it's perfect. So yeah, I'm very grateful for what he did for me.
Yeah, it really is a beautiful cover. It is. I'm very impressed. I was jealous when I first saw it.
I appreciate it.
Oh, Jay, what about you? Who did your cover for you?
My cover was done by a woman named Rachel Garrison, who she's a tattoo artist. She did my tattoos on me, and as I was looking for a book cover, I just kind of cast a wide net, reached out to a bunch of creative people, and I was like, does anyone do drawings or covers? And she came back. She's like, yeah, I do that too. And it turns out she's like this amazingly fantastic artist that does more than tattoos. Like, she's a painter. She draws, she does a bunch of stuff. And so we worked out a deal, and like, she hand drew, I don't know if you can see it, it's hanging up there on my wall. That's the original cover that is hand drawn by her in pencil or graphite. And then another one of my friends took it, put the coloring in there, and it became the book cover.
Nice. Yeah, I had a tattoo artist do a book for me too. It was Candy.
Yeah, I mean, they're really good artists. Like, if you're going to be putting stuff on people's skin, you better know how to draw, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've had some tattoo artists do short story book covers for me, and they always do a great job. Those guys are just so freaking creative, man. You get
yeah.
But now, who have you been using, Katie? Because you've got somebody new for these covers, don't you?
Yeah, I've been working with Molly Phipps with We've Got You Covered Designs, and it was a suggestion from another author friend of ours, because every genre kind of has its own niche artist out there, and you want to really target your genre when you do your book covers. And my original Little Werewolf covers, while pretty, they weren't, you couldn't see right when you looked at them what genre it was. It was just pretty girl on a cover. So we needed to amp it up and make it look like it screams teenage werewolf right on the front. And it does.
Do they sell better now?
Yeah, they do. And what's kind of funny is, even when I go to live events, I still have some of the old covers in print. So I'll bring them and I'll offer them at half off, same great book, just a different cover. And a lot of people still go for the new cover because they think it's so much prettier.
Wow.
The covers are way more important than people think.
People judge book buys their cover. I mean, it's a cliche phrase, but it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I know I'm guilty of it too. I'll rarely buy a book that I don't like the cover of. I mean, almost never, really, unless it's just got stupid amount of great reviews, and then I'll check it out. But I think the last book I bought was actually just bought it a few days ago. Dark Matter by Blake Crouch.
Yeah, man. Let me tell you about that book. No. Go ahead.
Spoil it for me. I just started it.
No.
I think that's on my radar.
I've had tons of people tell me that I ripped that book off to write the variant.
Really?
It was released 3 months before the variant. So, I mean, I just read it last year. After I kept getting told that the variant was like Dark Matter, and
okay.
To me, it's not. I mean, it's got a simple premise. You can get this from the dust jacket of the variant, or the cover. Guy's kid goes missing, and he's trying to find him. And I mean, there's some. I don't want to say too much, but there are some more similarities. But yeah, and but Blake Crouch is a great dude, and that's a good book.
Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Nice.
I have kind of a similar story. So as I was going through the publishing process of Train Thoughts, which is about a guy that observes people on the train and things happen, right when I was starting to publish it, that's when The Girl on the Train came out, and I had never heard of it, right? And that's huge. And I read the blurb on the back of the book, and it was like, Rachel, I think her name was, I can't remember, takes a train every day, and she notices people to the point where like they're almost like people that are in her life. And then she sees something go wrong, and I was like, oh, hell no. Like, no. But then I read the book, and it was like, it's nothing like it. So I just had an oh shit moment.
Yeah.
briefly. But yeah, I had never heard of it, and it was never even crossed my path. But I don't know.
Jay, if I had the time to be a full-time writer, if I really had that much free time and I didn't work a real job, a real job, I would totally do a site like a pen name and write a book called The Girl with the Girl on the Girl, because I've been wanting to do that for so long, because it'd be hilarious, because I've seen big name authors make jokes about how the girl is the thing these
girl with
days.
the dragon tattoo, the girl with this, the girl with the
girl on the girl with the girl on, and so I was either gonna call it The Girl or The Girl with the Girl on the Girl, and so
I like it.
Maybe one day I'll do it. I don't know.
Sounds like a good adult movie title.
That's a perfect example, though, of writing to the market, though, right? Like, that's what's hot now is the girl with the thing. So everyone's doing it, and it's.
Yeah. I should totally do that.
If you could write, and like you were just saying, if you could be a full-time writer and you can do it fast enough, that's the whole idea behind that right to market. You write what's hot right then, but you've got to have that shit out within a month or two. Otherwise, it's not gonna be hot anymore.
But mine would be mine would be like crapping in the face of all those people who do it, though. Like, that's just how I am. I'm a smart ass.
He said dude.
I still can't comprehend how people can do that, though. How do you get 80,000 words written, edited, and published in that short a time?
Well, and somebody,
there's a guy, that's his shtick. Have you guys seen that? He's like a joke author, and he always has like a half naked guy on the cover, and it's like literally whatever current event is going on. It's pretty funny, but those are real books. Yes.
That dude is hilarious.
He has mastered what you guys are talking about. That is his thing. And he is killing it, and he's probably making way more money than me with writing. So, congrats to that guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, more power to. We're certainly not hating on him. I wish that I was able to do it. I mean, last year there was somebody on that 20 books to 50K put out a call for they wanted to co-write a book with someone and turn it into a series. And this was a very established author. And what she was saying is that I need someone that can write 70,000 words within 2 weeks. I'm like, who in the hell can do something like that? Not me.
Stephen King.
I mean, that's like a year and a half for me.
Yeah.
Even with the 1,000 word a day club, you're able to write 3 with that number, but that doesn't mean you've got them edited or even beta read for plot holes. I can't comprehend that number.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that too. It amazes me and it astounds me. And I think the big kind of critique that everyone goes to is like, oh, if you're writing that much, then the stories can't be good, so they have to be crap. And I don't think that's the case. I think these people are just hardworking and talented. I'm sure, there's a spectrum there, but
they weren't good, right? I mean, there would be an outcry of bad reviews if they were bad, but they're not. It's just they're managing to slam them out that quickly.
Yeah, and there are authors that are just powerhouses when they come to writing, and like you said, they're just really hard workers. And I've read a lot of famous authors on writing books, and some of them, because everyone asks about your word count per day, and some of them say it's a few hundred words, and some of them will say I'll sit down and write 5,000 words. But we're all different. When it comes down to it, it really doesn't matter. Katie, you put out a couple books a year. I can only do one a year, really. So
I'm not. I read the book by Chris Fox called what is it? It's something about getting down to 5K in an hour. That's the gist of it. And I'm like, well, that was fun, but that's not for me, because sometimes a successful night for me writing is a page or two that can look over those 2 pages and think that I just killed it. Then I feel accomplished. And I mean but you guys know about my standards, so that could just be me. I can't sit there and just vomit onto the computer and then edit later. I mean, I'm very deliberate about what I'm doing when I do it.
One of my favorite tools to use, and I don't know if you guys have heard of it before, Write or Die, which if you're in a time crunch and you really need to get some words down, it is a way to train you to do it, because it will play jokes on you. It will make loud noises. It will delete words if you hesitate, if you let the internet distract you and look away for a little bit. And it's a good tool for training yourself to just sit down and write. But like you just said, it doesn't work for everybody. Everybody's got their own style for it.
Well, and I tried the writer die before. In fact, I've used it a couple times. It was like a game. It was like a fun little game to play with myself. How fast can I write this before it starts effing up everything I've written? But really, when I sit down to write, I'm usually out here at the table, and I'll write a paragraph, and then I'll just be looking here, looking at the trees over there, looking inside the house, and then I'll write another paragraph. But really, when I sit down to write, I kind of gave up on the word count thing, because my word count used to be 2K. And so now my goal is always just to write a scene, or finish a scene that I started before. And then I feel like, okay, I've accomplished something. I can be happy. I can close the computer. I can go do whatever else I have to do. But, oftentimes if I sit down and I can't at least finish a scene, then I'll feel almost brokenhearted about it. I'll be really kind of disappointed. So that's always my goal now, is just to finish a scene, whether it's 500 words or 2,000. And
I can't describe it, but like I have a thought in my head where I want to get it on the paper, and I just want it. I will write it till it's done, right? And if I can't, then like you said, it just sits with me all day, and that's all I think about. And I'm like, I just want to get it out. Once I get it out, that's a good stopping point for me. I don't care if it's 300 words, 6,000 words, whatever. Like it's the chunks of ideas that get put on the paper.
Because they marinate in your head, and they're cogitating in there, and eventually you've got to get those suckers out. But I made a mistake. Say, I was stuck for like 2 weeks here recently, and I had made the mistake of, I'm writing 3 novels and a handful of short stories right now, and I had left them all on these little cliffhangers, because when I write chapters, I like every chapter has its own little story arc, so the reader will get to a high point, and then we'll switch chapters. That way I'm kind of forcing them into the next chapter. But I left all of these stories on little cliffhangers, and I sat back down. I was like, I have no idea where this was supposed to go next. So I kind of screwed myself over doing that. So that was pretty frustrating. And then that's where, because I'm not an outliner either, but that's where outlining kind of comes in, is because I can kind of write out what's happened so far, and then by the time my hand's getting to what's going on now, a lot of times I'll have thought of where I'm supposed to be going. But so that's another nice little trick. If anybody out there is struggling with where to go, is even if you don't like to outline, if you're stuck, make yourself a little outline, because a lot of times it's going to shake some stuff free in your brain.
Or give your character a to-do list.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a hard outline. It can just be, hey, we need to do this. You need to talk to this character. You need to go here. Like you would make a to-do list for yourself. And that way, when you've checked off your items, you're like, oh, I still have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Cool. All right. Well, is there anything else you guys wanted to talk about tonight? We're getting to be about at an hour, and the mosquitoes are coming out.
I don't know
to promote a little bit here, buddy.
You do it, man.
Yeah, go for it. Do mine too.
Both Jay and I have a book currently on sale for 99 cents on Kindle. Tamer Animals, my most recent very brutal horror release, is 99 cents right now. It's also on Audible, but not for that price. Okay. And Jay's debut novel, Train Thoughts, is 99 cents. And even though I got a paperback copy coming to me, I went ahead and got it because I really shamefully read on my Kindle most of the time, especially if it's a book signed by the author. I don't want to mess it up. So 99 cents is cheap. I go through a publisher for Tamer Animals, so it's not going to be that cheap like ever. So if you want to pick it up, I recommend you check it out.
Yeah. And then I would just say, do you want to do your little dance about reviews? If
you can.
I can. If you like the books,
hey Jay,
please.
Jay, hold those books up again while you're talking. That way we can see them, because it doesn't flash to you unless you're talking.
Oh, okay. Here we go. I will talk, and I will say, if you like both of the books or either of the books, please leave us a review. It's the best thing you can do for an indie author, is to get those reviews out there. It helps spread the word. It helps other people buy our books. So there you go.
Excellent. Yes, and please, please, for the love of God, leave us reviews, because sometimes we don't know what the hell we're doing, and we just need somebody to get on there and tell us, hey, I love this book, and then we're like, okay, I can write again today, or I can write again tomorrow. It's all good.
Your review may stop an author from taking up scorpion petting.
That's right. Again, we don't have that kind of thing in Michigan, but we do have mosquitoes, which are
reading. Has anybody read Rant by Polinick? Anybody?
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, he intentionally gets stung by things because he likes the feeling that it gives him feeling in his pants. It's a weird book, dude. I'm telling you, but it's crazy good.
The storytelling behind it, it's all told in like people's opinions of him, so you never know what's true or false because it's all like secondhand.
Yeah. What is it? An autobiography? No, it's not auto.
It's
the oral biography of Buster Casey.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really
very.
good. It's
I've never read a book like it.
I did the audiobook, and they had a different voice actor for every single character. It was crazy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, even it would be like Charles whatever, and then it would always be this one George Goodall or whatever. So it was pretty cool.
But Rant's cool, but also what's cool? Right here, cool too.
Tamer Animals and Train Thoughts. Those are also cool. So everybody out there that's watching, I'm talking to you, Amanda, James, Danny, and Rachel. There was somebody else that I'm missing up there. You all need to get these books. Well, I'm sure you already have them, and then also I have a new release coming up in just a few weeks here. It's available for pre-order, Whispers in the Shadows. So that's also 99 cents. It's the last time it will ever be 99 cents, and it is a suspense thriller. And then Katie, you just released 2 books very recently. Tell us real quick about them.
Oh, yeah, the Agents of Asset series. I wish I had my books to hold up, but A Weapon of Magical Destruction and A Taste of Your Own Magic are available now. They are $3.99 on Kindle, or you can purchase them directly from me at katiesolitis.com for $10. That includes the autograph, too, so definitely get that. Otherwise, they are available worldwide on all distributors. The paperback is $12.99 and the ebook is $3.99.
Katie, you charged me $20 for those books. What the hell?
I gave him free. Don't even.
They look awesome. I've seen it.
I loaded him up with so many books that he was telling me he couldn't take them home because his luggage was too heavy.
There's a limit on the airlines.
Yeah, I saw you just came back from from the Vegas conference or something there was out there, and I saw your books out there, and they look awesome just based on the covers. Not that I'm judging a book by its cover.
You should.
Everyone does.
That's why we hire good cover artists.
Speaking of that, they did, and this is a yearly thing, so plan for next year. I'm part of the Writer Track program on Combat Con. They come every year to Vegas, and they do a page to stage contest where you can submit a 2-page fight scene, and if you are chosen, they will have professional stunt actors choreograph your fight, as well as have a panel of authors to critique it. It is so cool, and I've posted a video of it on my personal Facebook page.
You know what I'm going to do, though?
Nice.
Because your idea was great, but I'm going to go ahead and give you my idea so that way it'll be awesome. It's page to play sex scenes.
Page to play?
Well, no, it's page to play. I think that's what she called it. Because you write the scene and then the actors act it out. Nothing?
Yeah.
Oh, guys.
That sounds like something from the sequel to Get Out.
which
I don't know.
Which I would watch.
Yeah, man. It's like Would You Rather or something. I don't know.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us on another Spilling Ink live from my backyard. It's night here now in Michigan, and my neighbors are partying, which is all good. But we had the pleasure of having Jay Sigler and Justin M. Woodward on tonight. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us.
Thank you.
And our lovely co-host, Katie.
Thank you guys for joining us. This has been a great conversation, all except the pooping.
Hey,
well,
you know.
All right, guys. Have a good night, everybody. Make sure you subscribe to the page, and we'll see you next week.
All right.